Plenty food, clean clothes, sport every morning. They gave me what I call the foundation of education. As I went into camp, I was not even 12 years old, so I didn't have a great deal of education. I knew that what I missed, I have to catch up. Mostly we concentrated on French and maths, because if you wanted to learn any electrical or mechanic, we everyone wanted to be a mechanic to make cars.
Slowly, the pieces of a normal life fell into place. Rigorous schooling was one piece. Rediscovering the good in people was another.
In Vésiné, there was a sense of family. It was very, very strict, but it was very compassionate. At night, at the dormitories, they would take turns to come and make sure that we're covered up. You know, they wouldn't dare do this while we were. Yeah, I woke up in the middle of the night and I saw them, those people that were very strict and very, very disciplined, open the window so that we get fresh air.
In different ways, a semblance of family was encouraged. But some attempts to recreate a family setting only served to underscore the enormity of the boys' losses.
So I sometimes send some boys out to be with a family, like for Shabbat dinner. And I went once, and I will still always remember. I came in with a family, but they have never lost anybody. They had their grandparents sitting at the tables, father, mother, sisters, uncles, or some especially. And I felt very lonely. And I came home and I was crying. I missed my parents very much. My sisters. I came out from a warm, loving family. And I was the youngest of 6. And therefore I missed them very much. And I came back and I said to the boys, I'll never go back to those places. I feel most comfortable to be with our boys. They're my brothers. And I said, never again.
Reality was very, very difficult to accept. People were telling us about reality, but we couldn't accept it. How could we accept all those people that we loved and cherished, that they're no longer? No, there's got to be some mistake. So, although we tried to be as normal as we possibly could, the past was constantly nagging at us.
Here at Amboise, in the lush French countryside, the older boys were recovering their Jewish traditions. But that too was fraught with emotional peril. On Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar, the boys were unsure whether or not to say the prayer for the dead, known as Kaddish or Yizkor. They couldn't, not when many of them clung to the faint hope that their parents might still be alive.
So we didn't know, should we say Kaddish or should we not say Kaddish? Since, for instance, I knew that my father died, I was there. I didn't see my mother die, but I knew she died. So there were among us those who, again, who were not together with their parents when their parents were killed. And what should they do? When does one begin saying Kaddish?
It was a terrible argument. Half of them didn't want to say Yizkor. Maybe my parents are still alive, so how could we say Yizkor? And of course, Nini and I, which were very young, but we had common sense, of course we said, well, so we don't want to say Yizkor. They should go out. The garden is so big. And those we want to say Yizkor, they should say. There is no place for arguments, I see. And so it was. And we saw on their faces that there was a change after that discourse, that for the first time they were ready to think about their own families.
Acknowledging finally that their families really had perished, the boys sought to somehow fill in the void. They looked to the other boys from their hometowns with whom they felt closest. But they had been grouped in their dormitories according to age, not town, and sharp rivalries and often fistfights developed between boys of different origins.
So we didn't really know what to do about it. I spoke to them at lunchtime and I said to them, well, now, from today on, everybody will be free to choose his own mate, his own friend, to sleep with him together. If it's 8 to 18, you may choose whom you like, but we will not choose for you, you are free. They were happy, and immediately they knew, and they put the name on the dormitories on the door. And you guess what it was. It was the town from where they were from. You know, it was written Budapest, Szatmár, from where they came from. Then you had the little boys of 6, 8 together with the big ones of 18. And the next morning, when they were fighting again, well, the big ones took the small ones, they should not fight. The Hungarian boys separated the Hungarian from the Polish boys, and I had nothing anymore to do in the morning in the infirmary. Nobody was coming anymore. And that was the beginning of the fraternity, you see, of the surrogate families they had, of the big bonds of friendship that's more than friendship, that's really like brothers, more than brothers, that you still see so today.
Slowly we began to integrate and to begin to appreciate the French way of life, from food to movies. It was a 20-minute ride to go into Paris. So we would go to Paris for the day and explore the world, which was, I mean, coming from the camps, and before that being brought up in the small villages. All of a sudden you see the Eiffel Tower and the Opera House and all these wonderful, wondrous things. Life began to take on a happy aspect of it.
The boys were finally able to open up, to feel normal emotions, even to fall in love. At Amblois, Nini became the object of many a boy's affections.
Everybody was in love with her. Even those who didn't admit it, they were all in love with her. She had grace and kindness. And also she spoke a good German from Alsace that was close to our Yiddish, and she understood us. And we understood her. Everybody. We wrote poems. My friend Kalman and I wrote poems for her, Yiddish poems.
Somebody knew that it was my birthday, so they decided for her birthday, she doesn't want any celebration, one knew that, we give her we write her up a little book, so she will remember us all. So they bought this little book, and each one wrote in his own his language a little something, and I was so happy when I received that. I think it was the most wonderful gift I ever received.
She has done really so much for all of us, really, the hundreds of them, simply to tell them that they should not resist love. They should allow themselves to open their soul and their heart to love. And I think she did it intentionally. She wanted us to become, I think, infatuated with her, and all of us did, of course. Sure.
Voyez, donc, comment je vais dire ça? There's so many emotions that this place brings out in me. It evokes, again, the beginning of life. It evokes a memory that I had a love across the street, a little girl by the name of Janine who gave me my first kiss after coming out of Bוכnoואld. And I don't know if I have the courage to ring the bell and to see if she's still there.
After 2 years in France, it was time for the boys to move on. As wrenching as it was to tear themselves away from their comfortable lives and close friendships, the boys realized their time in the French children's homes was only temporary. First, the older boys had to decide how they would make their way in the world.
To each one we ask, you know, soon we are going to Paris, we change, and you have to learn a trade. You wouldn't always be in a home. You have to look after yourself. And they were completely surprised. They couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe that they should once look after themselves and had a trade. They couldn't believe it. They all said, already now, after all we have suffered, couldn't the Jewish community support us longer? That we already, they were not prepared at all.
For the younger boys, the challenge was different. Rarely were there relatives to take them in. So the search was on to place them in foster homes in Jewish communities around the world.
There was so much pain in Europe that we wanted to distance ourselves from that pain. We wanted to make a different life, go somewhere else, somewhere new, somewhere far away. Australia was very important in that decision because it was far away. You had to take a boat and it's 3 months to get there. If there's another Holocaust, it would never reach us. Canada was also extremely important in our list. I remember thinking we were analyzing and we found out about Saskatchewan, the wheat fields. Would never be short of bread.
When the hostel closed, Nini and I were very unhappy because we had lost them. Yes, we had lost all of them.
It was very difficult to separate, very difficult. But on the other hand, the world was open. America, Canada, Australia.
In 1948, Jose arranged for 40 boys to sail to Australia.
We arrived in Perth. Out of the 40, there were 4 boys I didn't know that told these 4 boys will stay in Perth. And I had a guardian, Mr. and Mrs. Sharp, who I didn't choose, I want that boy or the other boys. They had my name and the other 3 boys they put in a hat, and each one took out, and I happened to belong to Mrs. Sharp. And I took care looked after me while I lived 2 years in Perth.
In Canada, Halifax was a key port of entry. And it was here that Robbie Wiseman landed. He was 17 and all alone. He continued by train on to Calgary, where he was taken in by the Goresh family.
It feels kind of strange to be in front of it because in my mind, when I think of Albert Drive, the first house that I came to, in my mind it's bigger than actually it is right now. A lot of happy times in there. Things in Europe felt so far away, like they were almost non-existent.
Sam Goresh was 14 when his parents welcomed Robbie into their home.
He came to our home and came to Canada to grab onto life with both hands. He wanted to live and to experience.
You accepted me opened your heart and your home to me.
I mean, he was just fit in beautifully. I mean, nobody could keep up with his dating and his partying and his good time because he wanted to live.
We wanted to act and feel like a normal teenager. You know, go to dances and have dates and go to Banff on weekends and do all these things that would be closer to sort of normalcy.
He became much the young French Blade in Canada. You know, for the French part of him was very strong. And in fact, when he was dating the girls, as a pseudonym, he was known as Frenchie. Robbie, all of them wanted to make a life for themselves. They wanted to, not to have things, but to make a life, to establish themselves.
When I asked Gloria to marry me, I think deep in the back of my mind, I thought, oh, she's going to turn me down anyway, so I'm safe in asking her. But when she accepted, there was this panic that came over me. I said, holy smokes, I got to make a commitment here. This is more serious than I realized. I wanted her to know what she is getting into. Her mother was making all kinds of inquiries. Well, here's this man that came from the concentration camps. Is he whole? Is he a complete person? Is there going to be problems in later life, or is there problems now? Is she going to be safe with me? I didn't know myself if I was capable of providing that kind of balance to a married life. In making these decisions, you wish that you had your parents. You say, well, would they approve of the family I'm getting into, the girl that I'm marrying, and sort of more or less talking to my parents about it, and hearing him say, yes, you're doing the right thing, go ahead and do it.
While Robbie was busy building a new life and raising a family, he lost touch with most of the boys. He restored his connection with them when he attended his first reunion in Israel in 1988, 40 years after he left France.
I think we needed all our energy and all our might to concentrate and make something of yourself and create some sort of life for yourself. And so we said, okay, I know you're in Australia, I know you're in Montreal, I know you're in France, but fine, I'll get to you later on. And that's what we did.
Some of the boys chose to remain together as a group throughout their lives. Many settled in Melbourne, Australia, where they've built successful careers, married, and raised families. But as these boys built new families in a new land, they could never forget the family members who were murdered in the Holocaust. To help ease their pain, they created a special memorial to their lost loved ones. A place where they can come and finally say Kaddish.
People go to the cemetery to visit the graves of their parents. We haven't got any graves that we can visit.
Every time we come here, we think of them. And we also want that our children and grandchildren, when they come here, they know the names of our parents, our brothers and sisters. It's already over 50 years. The day doesn't pass that we don't remember.
The group helped us to survive. If not for this, I think our life would be a lot more difficult.
After 57 years, we still